Now take a look at your layers. You see we have one hatch layer there. Actually, we have a furniture hatch layer here too. The more layers that you have for hatch, the more control you have over it. What I'll do here is open up my layer manager and I'll create a couple more layers here. So I'm going to do this. I'm going to create a layer called A hatch color, and then I'll create another layer called A hatch PATT. This is pattern, right? Here's two layers. The color doesn't really matter right now, but let's just say for the pattern, I'm going to set the layer color to gray 1. Now, these are going to be really light black lines. If you want it even more muted, right, then you might want to use the screen colors. This will be more in grayscale, right, more muted. So it's your choice, really. Okay, I'm going to try 252. Go somewhere in between. Now, the color for the hatch color layer doesn't matter because we'll be able to set the color for the hatching as we place it. So I'm going to double click here on A hatch pattern layer because this will be current. You can see up here. I'll close the layers here. Now we can start to hatch. All right. Think very carefully here about how you want to hatch. Remember that you already have the hatching of the railing here using color 255. So anything behind it will be blocked out, right? So let's think about what's the hatching that we need. Down here in this area, we need to show concrete block. Up here in this area, which would represent the walls, and this, the gable face, we need to show siding. So first, when you're using hatch, anytime you're using pattern, you also want to consider the scale, right? Remember that if you're going to show this at any scale, that you have to attach the annotation scale. Ultimately, this is going to be shown at 1/4 inch, right? So let me make sure that I'm in 1/4 inch before I continue hatching, and I'll use this button right here for the hatch. When I start the hatch, I want to take a look here at properties. I want to take a look at pattern. Okay? If you click next to it on hatch pattern, here's where you can get a drop-down menu of all the variety of hatch patterns that are in your current drawing, right? Now to show the concrete block, you could use any of these hatch patterns here, okay? But I would pay attention to your annotation scale. So right now you can see it's 1/4 inch, right? I'm going to try this one right here. And with that hatch pattern, what I'll want to do here, you'll notice before you even click, right? Before you even click, you can see a preview of the pattern, right? And this is at color 255. I'll just set it for by layer, okay? If I wanted to preview another one, I could make my selection and then just hover over the area. There we go. That's the concrete block I want. Now notice this, right? I'm going to go ahead and place it here and then hit enter. So I just did a left click and then hit enter. Now notice the orientation here, right? Notice how it starts in this corner with just a portion of my pattern. Now, if this is okay, we could just leave it. However, if you want to adjust the origin, here's what you could do. If I select a hatch, you'll notice again, you'll see your properties. Well, right next to properties, you'll set origin. If I click on that, what I need to do is simply select the point that I want to use as the origin. And notice how the pattern starts from this point. I show a complete block here as I go up. Now, if I want to do this side, look at this. I'll use hatch, and I'll go like this. Over here, you'll see match properties, right? You can see here, use source hatch origin, right? There should be a, what's it called? match properties, but it should be inherit properties. I don't see it right here. But what I could do, for example, is if I go ahead and place it here, right? Notice it's not correct. But if I match the properties here, I can select this guy and then click in here. Let me get rid of it first, so I see how it works. So what I could do is go to Hatch, use Match Properties, select the one that I want to match from, and then I could pick the area where I want to put it in. Now it just copied the hatch, so it didn't really do the same origin, but I could come back up to here to set it myself. There it goes. And then hit enter. Now, let's say as we're looking at the facade here to show siding, here's what I'm going to do. I'm going to temporarily freeze the railing, okay? Because I don't want to try to hatch in between each rail. I already have the solid hatch that's going to block it out, right? It's in front. So here, if I just do hatch, now I take a look at a different pattern, right? If I go over here to hatch pattern, what I want to do is I want to look at line. And I want to set up line in such a way that I get about 6 inches. Now you could be very technical here and do your measuring and everything and some calculations to do it correctly here, but where's line? Where's line? Oh, that's funny. I don't see. Oh, there it is. There's line. If I use line, this is just produces lines, and you'll notice I have got angle and I've got pattern scale. Okay. Now here, you'll notice as I go into this area where I'm previewing, look real closely, right? If I zoom in closely, it's really hard to tell. You can't see it, right? The lines are too close together. Well, another thing is this, that I didn't turn on the annotative, which adjusts the scale, right? The scale for my hatch pattern. So look, this is preview right there. Now I can adjust it in terms of, let's say, twice as big, right? Look at that. And notice too how it doesn't hatch inside the window, right? How do I make that happen? Well, for that we need to take a look at the options in terms of finding islands. So it detects all those lines right there inside the window as islands. But look at this. See how it wraps around the door and around that window and then in this area. So this is above the beam. I click here and there's all my siding. Now remember, once I hit enter, right, I can always go back and make my adjustments. It's just like the associative array, right? So I just reset that back to 1.5 times. You could play with that just to give the right spacing that you're looking for. All right, so there's our hatch pattern. Now what if I wanted to use gradient, right? Gradient for color. Here's what I would do. Let's switch layers now. Let's go back to hatch color and then freeze. I'm going to freeze pattern. Okay? I'm going to freeze pattern. Now think about draw order too, right? Think about the draw order. If I use hatch, let's say, let's do like a limestone color for the foundation wall here, right? We won't color every face here, but let's see what we could do. I'll use gradient. And now you can see with gradient, you can choose between a single or double color, right? If I just do single color here, you'll notice all the different styles, right, of gradients you can do. Now notice, let's say I'm going to make white one of the colors, and then here for the stone. Now remember, here we have index color, right? These are certain preset RGB colors. Now, maybe none of these colors really suit your needs. You might need to use true color, right? This is where you have more flexibility to use the slider, right? So you can find your appropriate color. And you could even use color books. So now if I click OK here, you'll see there's my color. Here's the second color. And then as I go over the area here, I've got gradient. Somehow I don't see it here. And why is the reason? Let's try this. Let's remove the associative property here, okay, as we do the gradient hatching. Let's see if that'll work. So we got our two colors here. We got a gradient pattern, and also we're looking at what layer we're currently on. This is the hatch color layer. Let's see if we can hatch this pattern again. We should see something right now, which I don't. And you can see, okay, it placed it on the other layer, but here's what I'm going to do. Here you can see, notice how it is non-associative, so I don't know why it's using that same layer. But let's see if I could just move it from that layer to this layer. Okay? And then let's see if we can freeze this layer. There we go. Okay, so now we separated the hatching. But here we have the gradient that's going to color the material for our floor. Let's take a look at another hatch gradient here for the walls. Let's make this like green, like a sage green, okay? So here, what I'll do, and I want to try to incorporate light here. So I'm actually going to hatch both of these a little differently, right? This is over the front facade. What I could do here is something like this. Let's go back to hatch, okay? And again, let's just place it in here. We might have to we might have to redo that. And you'll notice here, I just used one color. Hatching is kind of difficult to select, right? You kind of have to go over it and wait till it highlights. There we go. Before you select it. Just deselected it. Okay. Oh, it keeps moving. Okay, let's try to select it one more time. Sometimes it's better to go over the edge or get real close. See how I can select it now? Switch the layer. This goes to this layer. Okay. I need to select it again so I can check the properties. Okay. I want this not to be a pattern, but I want it to be gradient. And then if you look here at the properties, you can see I have the lighter color at the top, right? And that will help me indicate lighting. So once again, let me freeze this. Okay, you can see there's this color, and I'll do the opposite for this that looks like it's in the back. So here, once again, hatch command. And I might as well do this. I could use gradient, and then over here in pattern, notice I'm going to do the opposite. See how this one's light at the top, this one's light at the bottom, and I'll click inside these areas here. Now we should be very careful, and if you look here at boundaries, let's see here. We should be able to constrain the island detection, and that's what I don't see here. Let me look at my options. Okay, here we go. So here in these options here, you'll be able to see island detection. If I go over here to more options, there we go. You'll notice what we need to do is we need to get outer only. That's how we can avoid hatching inside of it. It's just using outer only. Okay, if I click OK here, there we go. See how it's on the outside only? Let's once again select just the color, switch the layer, Okay, and then let's go ahead and freeze the other one here. So what we want to do, the order is this. I'm going to take this gradient, this one here, and this one here, and what we're going to do is we're going to put this to the back. So we sent that to the back. Now when I thaw the pattern, this should be on top of it, in front of it, right? And as I thaw the rails, okay, again, all of this information should be in front of everything else. So you can see how important it is to use layers, right? Because as you set the draw order, right now I have 4 or 5 things on top of each other. But I got to be able to pull the rail and the hatch towards the front, the window and the gradient hatching and the other pattern towards the back. But remember, with the color, it has to be in the back and the pattern in the front. Now, just to give you a sense of what's possible, take a look at this preview and then we'll be done. So if I go plot and just take a look at a quick preview here. Let's do a window preview here. I'll just do fit to paper. We'll just set up for a DWG to PDF. Just want to show you the preview here. Now keep in mind too, we're using the student color table, right? We're using the student color table. And look at this, you guys. With just one color, look how much depth, right, and space definition you can create. You'll notice here, we probably need to also work with the line work for the railings, because you can see how the color white even blocks out that. So you might need to also take a look at the line work one more time to pull the lines forward to make sure we could see the outlines, right? Okay, and that will complete the elevation. All we need to show now are the dimensions, and then using your multi-leaders, you can call out each of the finishes. I don't need to make a video for that, but I think you guys know what to do. Go ahead and do it, okay?